As I sit down to dive into some fascinating, and often infuriating, tales from the depths of the intranet, I'm eager to share these real-life stories with you. Prepare for a wild ride as we explore the highs and lows of human interactions in all their messy glory. Am I the butthole for throwing my roommate under the bus to her auntie? I, 22 female, live with my best friend, who I'll call Sarah, 24 female, and her aunt. A little over a year ago we moved states and into Sarah's aunt's house. She graciously offered to let us live in her house, rent-free, while we get on our feet and figure out where to move next. Simply on the condition that we keep her house clean and complete weekly chores, and respect her house. Ever since moving in, I've slowly discovered the astonishing entitlement of my best friend. Her lack of consideration for others, lack of cleanliness, and just utter laziness is mind-boggling. She doesn't believe she should have to lift a finger to keep the house clean, and I have no idea why. I will spend hours vacuuming, mopping, cleaning the kitchen, feeding the cats, and cleaning their bowls. None of the cats belong to me, etc. This keeps her aunt happy. However, when I am away for a couple days, or working long hours and not home, the weekly tasks do not get done, resulting in a tongue lashing from my Sarah's aunt at both of us. I've bit my tongue for now a year, not throwing my friend under the bus, and taking equal blame for the filthy state of the house. The mess is almost entirely created by Sarah. This week, I haven't been home because I've been dog-sitting. Instead of taking initiative to do the weekly chores, Sarah, of course, spent the week on the couch, leaving trash on the table and sofa for me to clean up. Except I didn't get to it in time. Her aunt saw that the floors weren't vacuumed, the kitchen a mess, and the living room trashed. So again, we were called down for a house meeting. Amid being berated, I freaked the fuck out. I let it all loose, went on about how unfair it is that I have to clean the entire house with no help from Sarah, then watch it all get undone within the span of a day by Sarah, and then get the same berating as Sarah. Now, of course, she is mad at me and giving me the silent treatment. But I'm done. I've begged her before to help me clean, but I shouldn't have to. She's a grown adult, and the fact that I have to nag her to complete her share of the tasks is ridiculous enough. Now let's check out some of the comments on this post. Info. How did the aunt respond to this? Here's the response from OP. It seemed to be obvious to her how my friend clearly does very little to help, but she didn't realize the severity of it. She apologized to me and threatened to kick my friend out. That's good to hear. Sarah may cool off once she realizes how much rent costs are these days. Let it ride for a bit. You might consider a chore chart, with chores alternating weekly between you, just to remove any need to talk about it again and again. No. Not chores alternating between you. You'll just be left to clean up and catch up with what Sarah has let slip. Divide by room. One is responsible for the kitchen, one for the bathroom, each for their bedroom, etc. We hearts have some glasse. Not the butthole. I see a future in which you and your friend's aunt live very happily together, and your friend gets kicked to the curb. Here's the response from OP. Love this comment. And now for the next story. Am I the butthole? My ex-boyfriend's mom is mad at me, BC. I didn't keep her father's memorial flag. Long story short, around the time my ex and I split, his parents sold their house, and he moved states, so they left a whole bunch of things with me in my apartment. One of those things was his grandfather's memorial flag, which I held on to even after we broke up, but it'd been 4 years since, and I finally got rid of it, maybe 3 months ago. I felt bad getting rid of it, but it meant nothing to me and was just taking up space in my apartment. I tried shipping it to her when her son and I first broke up, but it was expensive and I asked her for the money to send her father's flag, and she never sent anything. It was just the other day I got a text from a random number asking about it, and when I informed her I no longer had it, she got mad at me, BC. It's the only thing I have left of him. Hearing that did make me feel bad, but it took about 4 ERS to hear anything about it after I asked for the amount it would cost to ship it to her. I can't help but think maybe I should have held on to it longer. But if something meant a lot to me, I wouldn't go so long without asking for it, right? Now let's check out some of the comments on this post. Not the butthole. One of those things was his grandfather's memorial flag, which I held on to even after we broke up, but it'd been 4 years since, and I finally got rid of it, maybe 3 months ago. You held on to it that long, and she didn't acknowledge you when you asked for help with shipping costs. But if something meant a lot to me, I wouldn't go so long without asking for it, right? Nobody would. It sounds like you held on to it that long without any contact from your ex-BF's granddad's family. Such a thing would mean a lot to a person's family in most cases, but them not getting it from you in 4 years, or even acknowledging you, isn't in any way your fault. Edit, spelling. Not the butthole. Once you refused to pay to ship it to you, you were free to do whatever you wished with it. Holding on to it for even an extra month would be generous. You're not running a free storage locker, and her later regret was entirely her own fault. She turned down her opportunity. It's the only thing I've left of him. And he abandoned it for years at the house of someone he has no relation with. Louis refuses to pay to get it back. You may have warned him. But, since he went no contact, you had no reason to. Not the butthole. And now for the next story. Am I the butthole for refusing to pay rent to a Som? I, 17 female, live with my dad and his family. He got with his now wife 5 years ago when she was a senior year of college. Since then, they have had 2 kids, and she's now a Som. A little backstory. My dad's wife, let's call her M, has only ever held a job for 2 years at a grocery store. His father was paying for her cell phone, car, and housing, till she met my father. After that, all the payments went to him. She ended up dropping out of college for my dad and stopped working. That was 5 years ago. But in no way are we struggling. My dad owns his own business and has a very good full-time job. Today I mentioned that I should move out when I turn 18 because her kids need my room. Until then, I should start paying rent to learn the value of $1. Mind you, I will still be 8 months away from graduating high school when I turn 18. I told her I'm absolutely not paying her rent when she is not contributing either. She then lashed out, saying that I was a spoiled bitch. If the request for rent or my departure came from my father, the one that is paying the bills, I would be completely fine with that. Moral of the story is, am I the butthole for refusing to pay her rent? Now let's check out some of the comments on this post. Not the butthole. Tell you dad before she twists the story. Make sure he knows you are not paying any sort of rent, because you are his child. Let him know that if she is going to speak to you that way, then you are going to have complete freedom to call her out. Also, paying rent will mean it takes longer for her to move out, since she will have no savings. Also, they absolutely cannot require rent when you are still a minor. They are legally required to house and feed you. So, if they try to charge you rent, or make you pay for your own food, call CPS on them. Not the butthole. Do not pay any rent before you turn 18. You are legally a minor, and your father is obligated to provide for you. I don't think you should pay rent before you graduate either, though I'm not sure of the legality of kicking you out if you are 18, but still in school. You'll want to check the laws in your state. If your dad isn't on your side, given she feels this way, it may behoove you to start saving your money now, if you have a job, so you have options when they can legally force you to pay or evict you. Funny how she's so quick to open her palms to money from a minor. Her mommy and daddy paid her way well into her college years, and somehow she feels you should adult better than her. Not the butthole. And now for the next story. Am I the butthole for scolding kids who were harassing me via calls? Am I the butthole for telling a group of kids to knock it off from harassing calls? Am I the butthole my brother is currently super angry at me, and we're not speaking? For context, a few days ago, my nephew, Taney, and a group of kids, 19 he knows, decided to crank call people. But it's 2025, so it was crank FaceTimes. We're talking 30 and 45 mins. When it first happened, I thought it was spam. Then after the 4th or 5th, I picked up and saw my nephew. Other emails were the ones making the call. Thinking I got added to his group chat playing a game, or whatever accidentally, I got his attention, and said that I'd been at it, and have a good time. They kept calling, and calling. I answered again thinking they couldn't remove me and told them they might need to reform the group since they were still calling me, and to please stop as I was out. At a super important event as well. They continued. I contacted my brother and sister-in-law asking for them to intervene, which they didn't at first because of a call they were on, and I kept getting the calls for another 30 mins, at which point I said, guys, enough, knock it off and get me off this call before your parents get involved. They finally stopped. The next day it started again without my nephew, and I work in a client-centered job that requires me to use my phone, which they kept interrupting. No amount of blocking was working because they just kept adding new numbers and emails. I text my brother again and told them to stop, or I'd call their parents, the last remnants of my youth dying in that moment. I finally block enough that the calls stop, and my brother calls me and starts lecturing me about how I'm causing my nephew to be bullied, and they're just kids. I can't tell them what to do, much less yell at them. Now, I was stern, but there was no yelling, no screaming, no inappropriate language. Just no nonsense. Cut it out. And suddenly my brother and I are fighting because he's blaming me for my nephew's bullying. And how does this look that his aunt is yelling at kids? I tell him he could handle it, or I would, but he cannot tell me what I can and can't do. That's when he lost it, claiming he can. And now there's a whole meeting at the school, and it's all my fault. Needless to say, I hung up. Fast forward now. Via my sister-in-law, I find out my nephew isn't being bullied. A couple of kids made a comment or two, but is fine and handled it. And there's community outrage because obviously it didn't just impact me, but others as well, and I could have been in my right to file charges, which I wouldn't do. Am I living in the twilight zone? If I called some random adult as a kid 50 times in an hour, and they yelled at me and called my mom, I would have been grounded for a month, much less impacting someone's work. WF is happening? Now let's check out some of the comments on this post. Not the butthole. They were old enough to know better, and you told them to stop. Repeatedly. And it became an issue with your job. If my kids were being extremely disrespectful like this, I darn sure want to know about it. Your brother's response is unhinged. I have a suspicion that your brother is a lawnmower parent from this post. If anything gets in little Johnny's way, he just runs it over and cuts it down. He has certainly changed. Let's just say he feels he's on the right side of things. Exactly. OP handled it way more patiently than most would. The fact that their brother is more upset about optics than the actual behavior says a lot. Definitely giving lawnmower parent vibes. Not the butthole. They were being obnoxious and knew what they were doing. Call their parents. The records of the calls will be in their phone's records, and they can discipline how they want. You were fine for telling them to go scratch. They're old enough to know better, and you told them to stop multiple times. Tell your brother to actually do his job as a parent and not justify bad behavior from his kids. He should be correcting them instead of whatever he's doing now. Like and subscribe for more awesome daily Reddit content. And don't forget to hit the bell to get notified when I upload new videos.